Hi, I'm John. This is my show, A Sports Reckoning. And if people don't know me, the real big thing of what I should actually be known for is I'm the guy who actually made the discovery that Michael Jackson's real parents are Diana Ross and Smokey Robinson. One of my things that I have about putting information into videos is that I have so much proof, right? So that anytime I even just show you a little bit of proof, in your mind, you're always going to find some kind of alternative escape path, right? Because you're going to find something to say, well, he didn't cover this. And it's like, okay, look at Michael Jackson was literally a star for 40 years. And his parents, who I'm saying is Diana Ross and Smokey Robinson, are both very well-known stars for 50 years, for longer than that. I mean, since like the 60s, so like over 60 years. They've been in the business and stuff, and how big Motown is and the creation. So the amount of information of what I have to deal with is super, and I can't ever fit it into one video. There's always going to be some escape path for you in your brain to escape from the facts that I show you. There'll always be something, and what it is what it is. What happens is that these people that I deal with, you are not capable of understanding my Michael Jackson story without me actually showing you the evidence and going through it slowly, starting with the creation of Motown. Then I would, go to the birth of Michael Jackson, and then I would go to the creation of the Jackson 5. Then I would go to the Jackson's 5 being discovered and led into Motown. Then I would go up to like Michael and Diana's relationship that develops through the 70s, leading up to them playing in the movie The Wiz. Then I would show you Michael then becoming an adult and transitioning all of his focus and his energy into creating actual art, which is what he did with the Thriller album. But with his art, he conveyed the true message of his real life story, which primarily is the song Billie Jean. But on Thriller, there's the two other songs. There's also Beat It, which is really important. People don't understand that song. And then also Wanna Be Startin' Something. Because also in Wanna Be Startin' Something, Billie Jean is also named in Wanna Be Startin' Something. It says, Billie Jean is always talking when no one else is talking, telling lies and rubbing shoulders, so they called her mouth a motor. And I say, look at right there. He just told you, Billie Jean, he linked it up to saying her mouth is a motor. Well, Motown, a motor is motor mouth, which is, if you're a motor mouth, that's like a Motown mouth. That means that person comes from Motown. It's Diana Ross's Billie Jean. There's stuff, but then there's when I go into showing you evidence, there's actually a woman at Motown named Billie Jean Brown. There's actually a woman. There's just so much more to this stuff. That's there's so much, right? I didn't mention The Lady Sings the Blues, because there's The Lady Sings the Blues, because then we're talking about Diana's film career, then especially primarily Lady Sings the Blues, where she's playing the character of Billie Holiday, because that's where the origin for the Billie actually is and stuff, right? Okay, so you go to Michael Jackson, then you see Michael Jackson makes that album, becomes the biggest star in the world, and still the fans don't understand his art. Diana Ross and Smokey Robinson have not publicly claimed him as their child. Diana Ross gets married to Robert Ellis Silverstein. She gets married again, starts having other children. Then Michael, after that, comes out with the Bad album, where he makes a song called Dirty Diana. Then you look at the songs of what he's doing because of his experience of what he's encountering, and then song like Leave Me Alone, where everybody thinks it's about the media, but it's not. It's about Michael telling Diana, I'm done with this. Leave me alone. It's so brutal, right? Then you just keep going on. You get all the way, then you get to the end where Michael becomes a junkie. Well, you get into the pedophile kid stuff and the Neverland stuff, but the people have always misread that, because you're not seeing Michael Jackson's true life patterns as being an abandoned child. And then having to deal with the recognition, the realization that he's not a Jackson, and now here's his real parents right here in front of him, but they're not acknowledging him as their child. He still has to live with the Jacksons and be part of the Jacksons, up until where the Jacksons become the Jacksons an American Dream. The family from Gary, Indiana, that's the reality of what he had to deal with. Plus, Michael now is the victim of a Billie Jean groupie. The Billie Jean groupie, that there is the essence of that, of which he highlights in the song Dirty Diana. But the Billie Jean groupie is like Diana Ross, that she was going after Smokey Robinson. She's a Billie Jean groupie, of which Michael is the victim of that because he's the abandoned child of this Billie Jean groupie stuff. There is so much more to it, right? So it's like, how do I explain all of that stuff to you in a video? And then I've got to show you that Michael doesn't really look like the Jacksons. I've got to counter every single issue there, every Jackson, because if I say this, then you'll jump, no, he looks like Joe. Oh no, well he looks like Catherine. Oh well, no, he looks like the girls. Oh well, no, he looks like the boys. So now I've got to cover all of that in the same video. I've got to cover all that. Got to go through all the pedophile stuff. I have to explain all of that stuff, which leads to Michael Jackson's drug addiction. And the fans are saying, Michael's not a junkie. He's not a drug addict. No, he was murdered. So now I got to debunk all of that stuff. I got to explain all of the Sony stuff, explain his whole murder. And people expect me to do that in one video. And it's like, dude, go look at my An American Scheme page. I've got over 500 videos dealing with every single issue that anybody has ever brought up. I have dealt with it. You know, but it's in 500 videos, and I don't expect you to all go look at it, but I would expect you to understand evidence. When I show what evidence is, I would expect you to say, oh, well, you know, that I see that there is something there. You know, that's all I try and do. I'll show you patterns of things. I can show you in narrow, like I can focus on one narrow little part and stuff, and I do that in my videos and stuff. But it's hard to prove stuff in one video, especially with somebody who's closed-minded and shit, right? So this Brendan Ryan person, I see this person commenting on a lot of pages in the sports car community, right? And he's commented on a couple of my things and stuff. I know some of the things that he's kind of liked a couple things I did, but he also doesn't like how mean I am and yelling and stuff. So I've got both sides from him and stuff, right? But the two main things that piss me off more than anything, that when I talk about the Jackson stuff, the things that piss me off more than anything is when people say I need DNA. I need DNA proof, right? When they say I need DNA, that pisses me off. And when they say that Michael looks like the Jacksons, right? And it's like, man, there's even cartoons out there that were created talking about Michael. I think it's called the Boondocks one. It might be called the Boondocks or something. But there's even in the cartoon, they call Michael an alien baby. And they're saying how Joe Jackson says it's an alien baby because Joe's like, instantly, this kid could sing and dance, so I knew he wasn't my kid and shit. Like, that's like people have been thinking that for a long time because it was obvious that Michael's doesn't look like the Jacksons, he doesn't have the talent of the Jacksons, he's this other thing. So like I said, even in the cartoon, they were calling him an alien baby. But they didn't understand the true story, but they could sense it. They could sense that there was something there. They just never actually understood it and shit, right? So the looks thing's pissing me off, but the DNA thing, right? So now I'm going to read this comment to you here, what he says. He says, the only issue I see with your MJ story, the only issue, like you have a complete grasp and understanding of my Michael Jackson story. And you know what pisses me off about this is because one of the first people that, technically he was a friend of mine and stuff, right? But in reality, he's an evil dirtball piece of shit. But somebody I spent many, many years with, smoking weed and fucking gambling with. And he's claiming to be a Christian. He's all Christian, all this stuff. And, you know, we spent many, many years together and shit. Me and this person I'm speaking of, right? And then so when I told him about my story and shit, and I have actually his daughter. I made my first documentary. And he had a daughter. And I had his daughter. She did the editing for me and shit, right? And then so after he watched the little video I put together, then he says, yeah, well, the one thing that you didn't notice, he says that Joe and Michael have the same chin. And see, that's what I'm saying. When people say to me, like, oh, I see the one issue, and it's like, oh, like he told me, the one thing, and I hate when people speak that way, the way they speak, like, oh, the one thing, but you're so smart and you're so wise, you noticed the one thing that completely destroys all of my story. Oh, this one thing. So, like, there's these little issues that really bug me and shit, right? These things that people say. And then what's crazy is that, like my friend said, the one thing is that Michael and Joe have the same chin. And it's like, okay, but that's the Joseph who you think is his father, that for all these years they've been telling you he's his father. But the person that I've named as his father is Smokey Robinson. And when you go look, Smokey and Michael have the same chin, and it's incredibly distinctive. The line that comes around their chin, it's so fucking recognizable. That's the chin, and that's not the person that anybody's saying the father. That's the person I've pulled out of thin air and said that's his dad. Then you go, so I've looked at the chin. It's like, oh my god, that's like Michael and Diana have the same eyes. but Michael and Smokey have the same chin. Like, and it's there's no doubt about it. It is so definable of a marking around the chin. It's so definable. It's just like, and that was the thing my friend told me. The one thing you didn't notice, and it's like, so I never talk to those motherfuckers again. After people say this shit to me, I learned to cut those fuckers out of my life. They're fucking dead to me and shit, right? I cut off any one of my friends that fucking said my story can't be true or it's wrong. Instantly, I cut them out of my life. I am done with that fucking loser shit being around me and shit, right? So Brendan says, here, he says, the only issue I see with your MJ story is getting DNA proof. Now, DNA, just look at the simple reality. Okay, if I had a piece of hair from Michael Jackson and a piece of hair from Diana Ross, and there was no doubt, let's say it's proof or whatever, we all know for sure, if we all know for sure this is Michael's hair and this is Diana's hair, you could not take that hair into a fucking DNA lab and produce evidence for me to prove that they're of the same genes and shit. You couldn't do it. And this would be there. Here, I've got the hair. Now here, you go in a DNA lab and prove it to me, right? So you're just going to trust somebody else's opinion that they can do that. Right? Now, if it's true or not, whatever, maybe they can and shit, right? But at the end of the day, you're just trusting their opinion because whatever they did, you don't know anything about it. Whatever evidence they show you, you don't really fucking understand. At the end of the day, you're just simply trusting that person's opinion. With no fucking actual evidence. That's no evidence. You're just trusting that person's opinion. And then, because what that is you've relinquished your entire ability to think for yourself, and you said, oh, I don't want to think about this. This hurts my brain to think. Oh, this is too much. How can I ever endure this fucking pain and this torment of you asking me to actually think? And you say, I don't want to think. I'll just trust the guy's opinion in the white coat. With no fucking evidence, you don't know how it works, but you're going to trust their opinion over my mounds and mounds and piles of actual evidence, and you think that stupid DNA shit matters more than my evidence does? Something you don't know anything about? Because you're not qualified to fucking understand what actual evidence that your brain doesn't fucking work? So you're just going to trust somebody in a white coat to do the thinking for you? It's not evidence. You're just trusting that. Otherwise, there will always be skepticism. There will always be idiots like you out there who don't know how to fucking use your brain. That's why I constantly yell and insult you stupid motherfuckers, because I want to make it clear that bitch-ass losers with no brains who don't have fucking thoughts don't deserve to be around me. I want you gone. Fuck you losers. I try and make it clear, and I try and insult you because you stupid, weak-minded losers, you get all fucking emotional and ass hurt when people fucking expose you as the morons you are, and I drive you away. That's what I'm trying to do. I don't want you losers around me. You're a waste of my fucking time. Be skepticism among the masses. Yeah, the masses of fucking stupid, idiot losers like you, who I don't give a fuck about you. Unless I missed something. Yeah, I think you missed a whole fucking lot. And let me show you on a higher level of what you've missed. This is Jim Morrison. So this is a recording of Jim Morrison at a concert and shit, right? Let's listen to this.
What are you gonna do about it? What are you gonna do about it?
know one thing you're not going to do is ever think for yourself. You'd rather fucking be pushed around, have your face stuck in the shit, be treated like an idiot and a slave that you fucking are. Because for some reason, thinking is just too goddamn much to ask, you fucking morons. Right? So I either read in a book one time or listened, or like this, I heard a recording of it, of Jim Morrison saying that he thinks that the government is sending out radio waves to keep the people in a state of mind where they're like always asleep. Right? And then, so the Morrison, you know, he died, I think, in early 70s and shit, right? So whenever it was he said that, it was probably like in the 60s. He was making that statement in the 60s. He was saying that the population is asleep. Okay, now one of the ways I've discovered is that the population, how they got to sleep, is that through the school system, when the school tells you that this is the answer and this is where you find it, and here's the answers, you write down exactly what we do, that takes away from the natural development of your brain as a muscle having to develop properly, right? And so what I've thought about that is that your brain goes into some form of atrophy, and so your brain doesn't learn it doesn't work anymore. You're like in a sleep-like state, just following the orders, and you can function in a society where you just follow the leader and you just do what they say. You're still able to function like that, but when people actually ask you to think and stuff, your brain doesn't work. Right? And I personally had the experience because of the movie The Doors, because of Oliver Stone's movie The Doors, that kept telling me to take LSD, try LSD. It kept saying that, right? And so I was smoking weed. I was always a weed smoker basically my whole life and shit, right? So it was like there was enough of that through smoking the weed that I could hear, this movie is telling me to take fucking acid. Try acid. Try acid. It kept saying, it was the Oliver Stone's movie, The Doors, right? It kept saying, try acid, right? So then me and the friends that were at that time, we all tried acid and shit. We all did acid. And then I experimented for about a year or so. I tried it 10, 15 times or whatever, something like that, you know? But it's a drug. I don't want to get wasted on a drug and shit. Like, just like any other drug, I don't want to get wasted on a drug. So there's like a part where you're experimenting, but then after you've experimented, and you've seen it, then after that you're kind of just doing it for the high. And so I didn't want to just use hard drugs for the high. At first I was expanding my mind and seeing the difference and shit, right? So like I said, Morrison was talking about the sleep thing, and then after I took acid, my mind woke up, and the first thing of what I did when I made my self-conscious decision, what I did is I realized that I had been exposed to something that I was not aware of my entire life. I was being exposed to this other higher power of control and manipulation of what society was doing to the population. I had realized that had happened to me. So then what I did to myself is I said, I'm going to recreate myself from here on out, and I'm going to start rethinking all my thoughts. I'm going to think about everything. I'm not just going to take for granted that this is what it is and this is what it means, or I'm not going to say, well, the masses have said that this is the way it is, or the fucking guy in the white coat told me this is the way it is. No, I'm not going to believe anything anymore. I'm just not going to believe anything, and I'm going to look for actual answers. I want to know what real evidence is. I want to see I want to seek the truth and shit, right? So I've been on that mission for a long time. And then, now this movie here, this is the movie They Live, which most of the people I would think in the sports car community probably are familiar with this movie because Rowdy Roddy Piper was in this movie. Now, I was into wrestling as a kid, and it says here 1988. So I had seen this movie before I had done LSD. It's like, to me in my head, I would think that this came out before 1988, but I guess it probably didn't, because this is like the actual movie clip or whatever. This is like a commercial thing and shit, right? So it says 88, but I did see this movie in the theater and shit, right? And so then after I took LSD, this is one of the movies that instantly came into my head that I recalled seeing this movie, right? And this is a big movie that people talk about, like in the truther community. They use this for the symbolisms of the statements of what it says and stuff, right? So this would be basically the same thing. You're asleep, And then you take LSD. In the movie, they represent that by puts on the sunglasses, and now he can see things differently, right? I would represent that as taking like a drug, like an LSD or some kind of hallucinogenic, that now your vision is altered, you're in an alternate state of mind, and you see things that are right in front of you, and you see them completely different than what they're totally different. Just like that, just like my experience with the billboards, and you go out and you start seeing all this stuff that you had seen before, but now it's different. It's altered. You're in an alternate state of mind and shit, right? So that's what this movie is talking about, right? So, and this is like what it's telling you. See how it says stay asleep, right? Obey. And that's what I'm telling you, that Morrison was saying that back in the 60s, he was saying the population is in some kind of sleep. They're in some kind of, the government's got them under, he actually was saying they were putting out radio waves. And Jim Morrison's dad, if you don't know, he was an admiral in the Navy and shit, right? Jim Morrison's not just some schmuck and shit who got lucky. He's actually a child of a fucking admiral in the Navy and shit. I'm sure he had heard a few stories from his fucking father. Plus, Jim Morrison was super well read. He was very well read into cultures and history. So he was educated too. He had an education. So Jim Morrison is an actual very much an intellectual person. So here's some parts from that They Live movie. Bye. That's what it, don't question authority. Watch TV, no imagination. Right? Then he takes it off and goes back into the normal world and everything looks normal. That's the pattern of what your brain is normal is to see. Because they've turned your brain off so you can't see the other shit. Even though it's right there subliminally though, they're hitting you with that. And this is what it's saying is, how far does it actually go? Who's actually in control of this world and shit, right? What is actually going on here and shit? What are we being subjected to? Who's actually in control of us? And when the people's minds are asleep, they can throw the shit right in front of you and stuff, and you won't see it. It's there.
Here you go, sir. Thank you.
Put up one other part here. Let me see. When he first looks at all the billboards, let me see if I can see that. But just the stuff like that, like obey. See, when I see obey and stuff, that's what I see when people are saying stay positive, right? It's like, man, they're spouting that fucking stupid agenda bullshit to try and keep you asleep and keep you as a slave. Right? So that's why I say, instantly I know when there's somebody out there that's saying, stay positive and shit, I instantly know they're slaves. They have no free thought, and they hate me because I do have free thought. And my mind does work. And they're always looking for an escape path, trying to denounce my fucking ability to understand what actual evidence is. And they're telling me, you don't have evidence because this magical DNA from the guy in the white coat, that's evidence. How the fuck is that evidence more than Diana Ross is in Michael Jackson's will as a guardian to his children? How is some DNA going to tell you more than the reality of what I can actually show you as actual fucking evidence? But you don't want, your brains don't work, and when I actually show you evidence and I tell you to actually think, it hurts your brain because that part of your brain was turned off, and they've created you as like you're basically a zombie. Your brain does not fucking work. All you do is obey and buy, and you don't question authority and shit. That's what you follow, the fucking orders of what they have set down for you to follow. And everybody, if you speak up and start having a voice, everybody denounces you. And they want to jump on you and hurt you. They'll cause violence to you because they're all in that sleep mode pattern and they don't want to be woken up. You like your face in the shit, don't you? Yeah. That's the fucking way the world is. That's the way I see it. That's what I actually think about, you stupid loser fucking morons and shit that I constantly encounter. Like how stupid it is for you dumb motherfuckers in the sports car community to not understand that if you help break my Michael Jackson story, I would be forced to say my story started to spread and actually was the development, the people that actually helped break the story started within the sports card community. You don't understand the value of what I'm offering to the community. You don't want me around because the real purpose of what this community is to consume and obey and have no original thoughts. Don't question authority. Let's all stay positive in our fucking world of shit that you all fucking love living in.